Hello everyone and welcome to our next lesson. Just a reminder that I originally developed this course for the BANGTAN Academy Discord community, so if you'd like to find out more, please follow them on Twitter at BANGTAN Academy _ so you can get access to other materials and make friends to study with. You can also find me on Twitter at writer_court or on thebtseffect.com. Hello everyone, welcome to Learn Korean with BTS Chapter 15. Let's go ahead and get started on page 50. Of course, go back through these words with your language pen later, but let's look at the first two. This we're looking at left and right. So left is 왼쪽 and right is 오른쪽. So I think the language pen just translates this to right and left, but basically this wen indicates left and 오른 indicates right. And this dolk is kind of like saying side. So this is like left side or right side. Then at the bottom of the page, we have some more directional words. So in these photos, there's of course a cat and it's showing you directional placement based on where the cat is. So the first one, we, so that means on top of, the top of something or above something. The next one, are, below or beneath something, under something. Up, in front of something. 뒤, behind or the back of something. 옆, which means to the side of something or beside something. 안, inside something. 밖, outside something. 가운데, which is the center or the middle of something. 사이, which is in between two somethings. And then 근처, which is like saying in the vicinity of something or nearby something. Moving on to page 52 and 53, this is our first key expression. So we're looking at gale, which I think I may have mentioned in previous lessons just briefly, but basically this is a way to say that you will do something. So let's look at the example conversation. The first person says, 여기가 국립광주박물관이에요. I know that's a really long word. That is all one word because that's the name of something. So they're saying this is the National Gwangju Museum. So yeah, that's a really long name. You don't really have to memorize that. That's just where they are situationally in this conversation. So we're talking about Gwangju, and this is a national museum. And the second person responds, 제가 표를 살게요. So that means I will buy tickets. 얼마예요? How much are they? So for usage for this 을게요 format is a promise or a willingness to do something in the future. It indicates the speaker cares about the listener's response to the action. So if you think about the other form we've already learned for just basic future tense, 을 거예요, which is similar to this 올게요, but the difference is that 올 거예요 is more neutral and it's just, a basic future tense of this might happen in the future, or it's probability, future tense. This has the indication that the speaker cares about what the listener's response will be, or they could be saying it in response to something that the listener has already said. So there's a little more nuance there. So this is for first person use only. You cannot use this to talk about what someone else will do. There is a set phrase it notes on page 53. It's very common to hear 제가 blank 올게요, or in informal 내가 blank 올게요. So that's just saying I will do whatever. So this is only for action verbs. So you just fill in whatever action verb there, and that is a very common set phrase. They also gave a note at the bottom that 저 or 나 combined with 가 is 제가 and 내가, not 저가 or 나가. So that's just how they're written. It's always going to be 제가 or 내가. It's never going to be 저가 or 나가 for saying I. So let's look at the conjugations. First, we have a verb ending in a consonant with 찍다. So for this, it's really easy. Just take off 다 and add 을게요. So we get 찍을게요. The example sentence, 괜찮으면 제가 사진 한 장만 찍을게요. So that means if it's okay, I will take a photo. And they're specifying one photo, but you could just say a photo in English. Next, we have a verb with a vowel ending. So take off 다 and add 리을 to the first syllable and then add 게요. So we get 갈게요. The example sentence, 미안하지만 먼저 갈게요, which means I'm sorry, but I'm going to leave first. Then we have the real irregular verb. For this, you take off ta. You also are taking off the real and then adding ryukeo. So it's almost like you're not taking the real off, but that's what's happening there. So just remember that this will end with the real in the first syllable or whatever syllable that has the real consonant in it. So here we're taking off ta, we're left with kol. So really we're just adding keo to that because we're taking off one real to add another real. So it's the same, you're going to end up with the same verb stem. So 걸게요. 이따가 내가 전화 걸게, which means I will call you later. Moving on to page 54 and 55, this is our second key expression, which is another verb conjugation. This is neo form. So the first person in this conversation says, 박물관에 볼거리가 많네요, which means at the museum there are many things to see. So 박물관, of course, is museum with our location marking particle there. 볼거리 is one of our new words, which is attractions or things to see, things to look at. And then 많다 conjugated into neo form for 많네요. Then the second person responds, 광주의 역사가 기억에 남아요, which means I will remember Gwangju's history because the museum that they went to is about Gwangju and its history. So basically, it's like saying this memory of this experience remains because kiok is memory, namta is to remain. So it's like saying I remember or I will remember the history of Gwangju. It's going to remain in my memory. So Neo format is for expressing newly discovered information that the speaker did not know before, and it can also sometimes show surprise. This can also be used in past tense or in future tense. So present tense is we've already seen in the example sentence. For past tense, it means that you newly discovered something that already happened in the past. So for that, you're not going to use neo, you're going to use 안내요 or 없네요. You can also use the future tense to make assumptions or guesses about what you think will happen based on other information that you have. And that format is 겠네요, because that ket indicates future tense. So 겠네요. So let's look at some conjugations. First, we have 맛있다. This can be used with verbs in general, not just action verbs. So that's why we have 맛있다 here. So just take off 다 and add neo. So we get 맛있네요. The example sentence, 이 빵 진짜 맛있네요, which means this bread is really delicious. Somebody would likely be saying that in context, because they don't give us a conversation here, but in context, that would be someone trying the bread probably for the first time and reacting in that way. That's why neo is attached there. Next, we have oda. So again, just take off ta and add neo. This conjugation is pretty easy, so we just end up with oneo. The example sentence, 갑자기 비가 오네, which means it suddenly started to rain. And someone could say that if it just started raining all of a sudden and maybe they didn't realize it at first and they look outside and they see that it started raining. So that's why ne might be used there. And then we have the real irregular verb. So here you're going to take off ta and also take off rio. Then whatever's left of the verb stem, you just add neo to. So for 불다, we end up with puneo. The example sentence, 바람이 많이 부네요, which means the wind is blowing a lot. Also, real quick at the bottom of page 55, that's where they're explaining how you can use neo in present tense, past tense, or future tense. I didn't read those example sentences when I explained that on the other slide, so let's look at those real quick. They give three examples, all the same situation. So the first one is 저기 펠레가 왔네요. So that's they're seeing it right then that this person has arrived, and so they're reacting to her arrival, saying, "Oh, Bella has arrived," and it can indicate surprise or just information that they didn't know. The second photo, they're looking at social media and they saw that this person attended a party yesterday as well. So the sentence becomes 어제 파티에 벨라도 왔네요. So that 왔네요 is in past tense because this already happened yesterday, but people are just now discovering this information. Then in the final photo, it looks like they've got a text message from this person that says she wants to go to the future party. And so their sentence there is 내일 파티에 벨라도 오겠네요. So that 오겠네요, that get is future tense. So they're saying, I think, or I assume Bella is coming to the party tomorrow too. Now on page 56, this is the full conversation for this chapter. So let's go through this. First we have 여기가 국립광주 박물관이에요. So that's that big long name for Gwangju National Museum. So this is Gwangju National Museum. 제가 표를 살게요. I'll buy tickets. 얼마예요? How much are they? 입구 옆에 안내문이 있어요. Which means next to the entrance, there is a notice or a sign. So that 입구 is entrance, 옆에 next to, so 옆 is next to, beside, and then 에 is the location particle, so 입구 옆에 next to the entrance. 안내문 is some sort of notice or sign, and then 이 있어요. So we've already learned that, of course. So there is a notice or sign next to the entrance. 1층 전시실은 무료네요, which means the first floor exhibit hall is free. So that first floor 1층 전시실, basically that is like an exhibition hall or an exhibit room. And then 무료 is free. Then in the second part of the conversation, they say 박물관에 볼거리가 많네요. So there are lots of things to look at or lots of things to see at the museum. The second person says 광주의 역사가 기억에 남아요. So Gwangju's history will remain in my memory. I will remember Gwangju's history, however you want to think about it. 우리 이제 중농관에 가볼까요? Which means, should we go to 중농관? So that's a pronunciation change in that word. It looks like juk, nok, wan, but it becomes jung, no guan. So that kiuk carries over jung no guang. So it changes to an ng in the first syllable for jung no guan, jung no guan. So that is a bamboo forest somewhere near Gwangju. So she says, shall we go to this bamboo forest? And then the other person responds, 좋아요. 지금 출발해요, which means sounds good. Let's leave now. So I'll read it one more time. 여기가 국립광주박물관이에요. 제가 표를 살게요. 얼마예요? 입구 옆에 안내문이 있어요. 1층 전시실은 무료네요. 박물관에 볼거리가 많네요. 광주의 역사가 기억에 남아요. 우리 이제 중론관에 가볼까요? 좋아요. 지금 출발해요. Finally, let's look over on page 57. There is a short conversation. So let's look at this. The first person says, 형, 여기 푸드 트럭이 진짜 많네요. Which means there are a lot of food trucks here. So that's just food truck written with Korean spelling or pronunciation, of course. The second person responds, 충창로는 길거리 음식이 유명해. Which means this area, this street that they're on, which is called Chungchangno, it's in Gwangju. It's well known for its like street food and shops and all that. So they're in an area that's famous for street food. And then he says, 뭐 먹을까? What would you like to eat? What shall we eat? The first person responds, 저는 저거랑 저거 먹어보고 싶어요, which means I would like that one as well as that one. So they're using 저거 as that one, pointing over there. So pointing to this one, pointing to that one, saying he wants these, both of these, wants to try both of those foods that he's pointing at. And the first person responds, 좋아, 내가 살게, which means sounds good, I'll buy. 둘 다 먹어보자, let's try both. So that right there is like a common cultural thing as well, saying like I'll buy, meaning I'll buy the food or whatever activity you're doing. It's pretty common for the older person in the relationship to pay, especially if you have a meal together. It's common for the older person to pay, or if it's friends that you hang out with often, it's common for one person to pay for one thing, and then the next time they do something, the other person pays. It's also common to go in rounds. So if you hang out with someone, you might go eat dinner and then you might go to a cafe and then you might go do something else. And so if there's multiple people, each person's going to pay for one of those things instead of everybody split everything super equally like we often do in America and other countries. That is changing a little bit. It is becoming more common for that to happen in Korea as well, but it just depends on the person. Traditionally, it's pretty common for either the older person or a lot of times the male or whoever might be senior in the relationship to pay for the food, but is also very common for one person to pay and then the next person to pay, and you switch back and forth like that. So that's it for this chapter, and I will see you in the next one.